Welcome to the first Kendo rant of the Reiwa period. Hi folks, it's Andy and this is indeed the first Kendo rant of the new Reiwa period. The Reiwa period is basically a historical period in Japan. Up until now it's been the Heisei period, and these kind of periods are marked by the sitting emperor. Yesterday was the last day of the current serving emperor before he quit his job, and his son took over and began the Reiwa period. So yeah, welcome to Reiwa and welcome to Kendo Rant. Just before we jump into the questions, do you like my new tenigui? It says Reiwa on it, that's what it says in the middle. I'm holding it the right way around, aren't I? Yeah. I like how it's got this nice blue gradation. See that? It goes kind of light blue, then really dark blue, and then light blue again. All this cool writing all over it with Reiwa in the middle. These are limited edition. I've got a handful of them for sale on KendoStar.com. So if you want one, you're going to have to act fast because once these are gone, they're gone. And like I say, they're limited edition. They're not going to be available year round. It's a one-off production. So yeah, get to KendoStar.com. It's the best shop in the world anyway. You should be there like all the time. Obviously, KendoStar.com, that's the website I run, just to make sure we're all clear on that. It not only helps support the channel, but it's a Kendo shop that I'm operating. It's everything on there is designed specifically for the international community. It's the best one on the internet. So go and shop at KendoStar.com. Right, let's jump into the questions. Andy, I've been enjoying watching your videos since I started Kendo recently. Thank you very much. I was wondering what your thoughts were on personalised Zekken. Seen some clubs have their logo or emblem on the Zekken, but I was wondering what it'd be like to have your own individual Zekken, which you put a logo or emblem, like your own unique symbol. I hope I made myself clear, and thanks for any responses. Okay. Yeah, it is reasonably common for some clubs to use like the traditional format of the Zekken or the Tade name or the Nahudai is the official correct name. Before I get told off, the sort of traditional design is to have. I should have brought one here, but they're all the way over there. Is to have the wherever you're practicing written across the top, or where you're representing will be written across the top. So the name of your club, or the city you live in, or the whatever sort of thing you're representing. Yeah. So if it's your country, maybe you're a national team member, usually the country is written across the top there. Not always, but usually. Then in the middle, usually the traditional Zekken doesn't have any English on it, of course, because they're originally Japanese things for Kendo. So it would have the name written in Japanese, usually in kanji. But now that Kendo's practiced so much around the world, it's a wonderful thing. There's more sort of westernized Zekken, which usually have like katakana in the middle with your name on, or kanji or Chinese characters if you can use that to write your name as well. And then across the bottom, we often write it in English. Some clubs do indeed have the name of the club across the top, the name at the bottom in English, and then a symbol or the dojo logo in the middle, which is totally fine as well. The downside of ones like that, of course, is if you go to Japan, it's very difficult for people to read your name, because not everyone can, especially if you've got quite a long name. But I've even had people struggle to read my name, Fisher, over there. So. Anyway, I would avoid having a unique emblem on your Zekken. I don't think it's a great idea. The idea of the Zekken is to identify you and to identify who you're associated with, and it's very important. It's a very important aspect of manners in Kendo actually to wear a correct Zekken. It's something I've talked about before, actually. So you should make sure that you do have a Zekken that's easy to identify, so people can tell who you are and people can tell where you're from, really, what club you're from, who your teacher is, stuff like that. And that's really quite important. I know myself, actually, from a teacher's point of view, it's very difficult, of course, to distinguish everybody. And people look different when they're wearing the borgu to when they're not wearing it. So it can work it can be a disadvantage to you as well. If you have a Zekken that's difficult to identify you, then it's better. It's difficult, sorry, for the teacher. Maybe they practice with you, and then afterwards you come to ask for the advice. It's difficult for them to remember you sometimes because they can't read the name, or if, it's difficult to identify. So it's better to have a Zekken that's very clear and fits in with the rest of your dojo. It's kind of part of the uniform of your dojo as well, for the most part. So and actually, I think in the Shiai regulations, I don't have the book to hand, but in the Shiai regulations, it also sort of says in there that it should say where you're sort of representing on there. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure you will. Next question. Hello Andy, I've been checking the EKC 2019 website and I saw that there are only 2 juniors in the UK team. Why is that? The EKC 2019 is the European Kendo Championships. It's later this month. If you've looked on there and looked at the GB team, you've probably seen that I am indeed part of the coaching staff. I'm not like super involved in it. I'm just sort of helping out with coaching. So it's a bit of a difficult question for me to answer as to why there's not more juniors on the team. But the fact is that in the UK, we don't have a massive amount of juniors doing Kendo like we do in other areas of Europe. There's only a handful of actual kids or juniors dojos, for example. But it's not just that. We've got some absolutely fantastic youngsters in the UK. And really, really brilliant, really, really promising. The difficulty with the EKC, and it's the same for the WKC, is the kind of bracket for competing in the juniors is between the ages of 15 and 18. So it's literally within just that. They've got to be with that specific age. And right now we're just at a sort of changeover in generations in the UK, where all of our youngsters that have been at the sort of competing in the juniors, lots of them have turned 18 now. So they've moved up to the adult division. And some of the youngsters that we've got coming through, the really promising youngsters that we've got coming through, they're actually not quite 15 yet. So we've got a bit of a generation. It's not really a generation, is it? It's only a couple of years, but it's only a few years, but we've just got a little bit of a gap there, which is why we haven't had the pool of people to select from that we maybe would have liked to, but I'm sure that's going to change in the next year or two. So very, very bright and exciting future for our team, I think. Next one, thank you for your video on the upcoming 8th Dan Championships. So obviously this comment was before the championships. Where does one go to watch Kendo? Is it on regular TV back in Japan like NHK or Fuji Television? I presume you watch major tournaments by an internet stream. Before internet streams, how did people watch or follow Kendo? So actually in Japan, most Kendo tournaments aren't televised. You might get some on local televisions, local television stations. If there's a big tournament in the area, like Fukuoka, they usually have a spot on the news about the Gyokuryuki, for example, which is one of the biggest high school tournaments in Japan. But I don't think they actually regularly televise it. It's usually live streamed though on the internet. The All Japan Championships is televised. That is televised on NHK, and I'm pretty sure that's the only one that's regularly always televised. Now, I know there's been a couple of recent ones that have been televised as well, but it's not live. It's not televised live. They record it and then they play it later, and it's often at like early hours of the morning and stuff like that. So there's not a lot of it on television in Japan, but everything's on YouTube now. Like I say, lots of it is live streamed. The Zenken and the All Japan Kendo Federation have been live streaming a lot as well recently. Though I'm not sure, they didn't do that at the Todorfken last weekend, which was unusual, but they did do it at the 8th Dan Championship, so that was live streamed, for example. In terms of before internet streams, how did people watch or follow Kendo? Well, I mean, if you're in Japan, that's one thing. You could go and watch. You can go. Or you would get the DVD or the video, the actual VHS. You could buy them from the Zenken then. Or the Kendo magazines would include the DVD with the matches on, basically. So yeah, that's basically it. I started Kendo back in September and I've noticed that my right heel hurt after Keiko and sometimes even goes numb. I thought it came from my poor fumikomi, stamping my heel first and then hitting the rest of my foot on the ground, but I feel myself and this doesn't seem to be the case. Any advice? Well, it's very hard for me to say this. Obviously, I'm not a doctor or anything, and it's hard to say without seeing it, but probably you're trying to stamp too hard. That's a really common problem right at the beginning. You've probably seen the senpai in your dojo, the seniors in your dojo doing fumikomi bang when they hit. But that's something that comes with technique and practice. The most important thing about when you do fumikomi is that you time it at the same time as your cut, not that you stamp really hard on the floor. So what I would advise is don't think about stamping hard. Just think about stepping forward and making the strike at the same time as the right foot lands. It doesn't have to make a massive bang or a boom on the floor. That will come later with time, right? The important thing is just getting it right, and then practice and practice and practice and practice. It'll gradually get louder and louder and louder. And it isn't a prerequisite anyway of anywhere in Kendo where it says you have to do a loud stamp on the floor. So the kind of the boom noise, the stamping noise, it's sort of a byproduct really of a strong leap forward. So yeah, I try and think about that. Don't think about smashing your foot down hard on the floor, but think about just the timing and making sure that it happens at the same time. Secondly, go and watch my video on fumikomi. Okay, these next two questions, these are from the Kendo Show Early Access group. There's a link in the description down below. Say it every video. If you're not in the group now, you're probably not going to join it now, unless it's your first time watching, in which case there's a link in the description for a brilliant group called the Kendo Show Early Access. I post new episodes of the Kendo Show instructional videos. Whenever there's a new one of those, it goes in there first, so you get early access to it. And it's a great place to post your questions to go onto this paper, and I'll answer them in this video. And you get loads of the people that are in the group as well. They answer it as well, so you get loads of opinions, not just mine. Right, links in the description. Hi Andy, as we've seen lots of rankings in Japan these days, for you, who are the Heisei no Kensei? So I've kind of shortened this question a bit because you did post as well to the Kenshi 247 article about, I think it was called the Showa no Kensei or something like that. And it's about Kensei is like the sword saint, the master swordsman, and it was an article about who they were of the Showa period. Yeah, okay, so who do I think are the Heisei no Kensei? Now that's a great question, especially today is the first day of Reiwa. So the Heisei period is totally finished now. Who are the Masters of Kendo from the Heisei period? That's a great question. I mean, obviously it'd be wrong not to mention Miyazaki Masahiro sensei, of course. He achieved so much in Kendo in the Heisei period, as did, there's many, as did Eiga Naoki Sensei, of course, the recent Hachidan champion, the final Hachidan champion of the Heisei period. There's people like Heisei. Yeah, those two really stick out to me. Takanabe Susumi Sensei, Uchimura Ryoichi Sensei, these people. Obviously, all of that sort of era. I'm hesitant to look at sort of younger people like even like Takenouchi Yuya. He's still a young guy, and I still think that he's got a future ahead of him. Even like Nishimura Hidehisa, he's got a little bit more. Well, he's got a lot more to go as well. He's still he's younger than I am, so he's got he's definitely got a future ahead of him. So I don't think his career is kind of over. Not that even not that Eiga Sensei is or Miyazaki Sensei is either, as we've seen from just last week's Taikai. But like the kind of proper being on the All Japan team and All Japan Championship sort of stuff. Those guys have kind of elevated to the level of sort of Sensei Kendo God now, right? So yeah, I think for me, really, Miyazaki Masahiro, Eiga Naoki Sensei. Probably Uchimura Sensei as well. because he's been amazing throughout the Heisei period. Even from being young, you know, from being a young boy. So yeah, I think that's where I sort of sit on that. I'll probably think of somebody later and be like, oh yeah. Of course, yeah, and mentioning Takanabe Sensei, Teramoto Sensei as well, of course. They're all great. Some, you know, we get great Kenshi every year now. It's brilliant. Okay, last one. I bought the deluxe Samurai Cats Tenugui as a gift for one of my Kendo friends. Can we do a rant video on the meaning of the samurai cats and also perhaps some tips on tying tenugui? This one. This is the tenugui that you can get on KendoStar. I can't bring it up because it'll go dark. It's got 3 cats. If you go to kendostar.com, you search samurai cats, it'll come up. And basically, it's got 3 cats that dressed as samurai, and it has this kind of triangle design in the background in red with a Japanese character behind. So it's got 2 kind of meanings. There's some text on here talking about samurai and stuff, but basically they're dressed as shinsengumi, which are like the shinsengumi, you know, they're like kind of military police from you know, the Edo period. But so that's what they're wearing, and the kanji there, and what they're wearing on their head here says Makoto, which was the motto of the Shinsengumi. So yeah, that's what they're dressed as, yeah. And the reason that they're cats is because they are also maneki neko, which is the kind of lucky cats. You've probably seen them, like they have statues on them with the paw like this that goes like that sometimes. Like they're supposed to bring luck, those sort of cats, and it's basically those cats dressed as the samurai, the shinsengumi. Sorry. So yeah, that's what it is. It's not like it's kind of a cute design. There's nothing more to it really than that. As for tips for tying your tenugui, I'll get my lovely Reiwa tenugui again. First off, when you tie a tenugui, right, what you have to do is you have to hold it. If it's got writing on it, like this one, the writing should be facing you. Yeah, what's written on the tenugui is written for you, not for the people that are looking at the back of your head. So that's number 1. Number 2 is you have to kind of keep it pressed and tight against your head as you go all the way around to the back of the nape of your neck. Keep it above your ears. Like this. Keep the tension on, across, keep it nice and tight here, across here, and I keep it nice and tight so I can take my hand away. Yeah? Then I take all this stuff here and I pull it straight up. And then I like to give myself a little bit more space above my brow. And then I tuck that under there so it's not flailing around. Like that. Tuck all that in nice and neat. And I can take my hands off now. It's not going to fall off my head because I've kept it nice and tight, nice and taut as I pulled it around my head. Like that. Once I put my men on, it'll be nice and neat at the back. Okay? That's how I do it. I don't do this one where you tie it all up around and tie it in knots and stuff like that. I like this way. It's quicker and easier. So that suits me. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to shop at KendoStar, like, share, subscribe, all that sort of thing. Thank you very much for watching. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you'd like to see next time. And that's it. See you next time.